Rock that boogie, get your rocking shoes, we gonna rock and roll. Come on, cats, let's go, go, go. Hola! Chica!
All right, welcome back to another episode of El Pachuco Chronicles. Once again, I am your co-host, Jim Ruel, along with Ray Estrella. You want to say hello to our dozen listeners?
Hello, Jim. How have you been? I haven't seen you in a week.
I'm hanging in there.
You were at Comic-Con?
I'm still recovering from Comic-Con, yeah.
He was on a panel at Comic-Con?
That was exciting. That was a dream come true, honestly. I'm still happy about that.
Wearing a Zoot Suit with his native colors?
I got so many compliments walking around. They asked, who are you supposed to be? I'm like, oh, it's this obscure Native American comic. You wouldn't know.
And who else we got here?
Hi, everybody. This is Phyllis Estrella, Ray's mom. We have a special guest today, and we're so happy. His name is Daniel Valdez, and he was in Zoot Suit.
Well, he's the one that, started this all. I mean, not started it, but you saw the movie, you saw him in it, and it was all over after that.
You know, I had never in my life seen a Zoot Suit before I went to see that movie. Never. When I saw you on stage, Daniel, you really changed my life.
Thank you.
You did. Here he is.
Introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Daniel Valdez. Good afternoon, buenas tardes. We're going to have a good time. Stick around.
Daniel's the nicest, most humble guy you ever met. Quiet. Well, you know, I've heard your brother speak so many times, and I love all his stories, especially about Cesar Chavez.
Right.
You know, and the stories. Now you got stories. I mean, you were telling me earlier how you're related to Lalo Guerrero.
Yeah, Lalo is my dad's cousin, second cousin, and
You never knew that?
yeah, it's a small world, you know.
Yeah.
But my family is from Tucson, Arizona. Right?
He's Yaqui Indian.
Yeah, I'm a Yaqui.
Both his parents.
Yeah, and my mom was born in Caborca, and my dad was born in Douglas, and they lived in Tucson in the 1930s, and this is a small world, but Lalo Guerrero baptized Linda Ronstadt. So when I worked with Linda, we found out that we were related. We're connected with one another, and it turns out that her great-grandfather and my great-grandfather worked together in the early 1800s. It was a small connection, but we have family. We still have family there in Tucson.
Wow, what a story. What
History.
a story.
What history?
Yes.
Jeez.
See, and Cesar was somebody who grew up in our family. You know, he knew me when I was 6 months old. He used to hang around with my cousin Billy. They were Pachucos back in the 1940s.
Wow.
And that's where the name Sisi came from.
Yeah.
And
Well, that's how I hear your brother refer to him.
yeah,
as Sisi.
He was a Pachuco.
Yes. He was a Pachuco. That's how he got the stance of the Zoot Suit.
Yeah,
he was Sisi standing on top of the truck.
Yeah, and him and my cousin Billy, they used to hang out together. So they used to come over to my mother's house to steal our tortillas, right? And they would hang out, and he met me when I was 6 months old.
Wow.
So when I went back to Delano when I was 17, I didn't find out he knew me that well until years later. You know, after being in Delano for 4 or 5 years. So it's a small world, man.
You're not kidding. Now, tell me the story about how did you come across with the Zoot Suits? You said you had a tailor that made your Zoot Suits for you.
Yeah, we found a guy who was really popular in the 1940s. He was an old man. He was about 75 when we found him. We found him through connections of other people who told us about the old tailors who used to hand make all the Zoot Suits. So we found him. We talked to him. We wanted to commission him to make our Zoot Suits.
Wow.
So he said, I don't use sewing machines. I do everything by hand. So the clothes that we wore, my white camel hair top with gabardine pants, and Eddie's was mohair. So
really?
Yeah. So the clothes were unbelievable. So
And you still have them?
Yes, I still have it. It's in mothballs.
Wow. And he made a few for all of you then?
Yeah, he made almost all of them. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, all the Zoot Suits and the shoes. The calicos were actually 3 layered, so it actually lifted people up. So when you stood on it lifted you back. Yeah, like tres vuelas they called them.
Wow.
Yeah. And we had to get used to it because the chain that hanging down on these, we used to get caught in our legs when they're dancing.
Yes,
so
yes.
We had to know how to move with the chain. And people don't realize what the chain was for. Well, at the bottom of the chain were keys. And Pachucos would pull them out and use them as a weapon
Okay.
to keep people away, right? That's why the chain was there.
That's why the chain was there.
And you know, Danny, excuse me, they always ask me, why do they wear a chain?
Yeah.
Why do they wear the chain?
Now we know the answer.
The keys were always in the, but tenían llaves, right? Para la casa. And they would put them at the end of the chain. So if they got beat up or
Now we know.
yeah, they would pull out the chain y vámonos.
Wow. And the girls would wear something in their hair.
Yeah, a clothespin. It was a hairpin. They were really large. They're large, about that big.
Yes.
And they would pull it out of their hair, man. You know.
Now, when you guys were talking about the movie, how did it come down to you?
What do you mean?
Like, did your brother know just I'm going to use my brother Daniel, or
Well, actually,
I know he makes everybody audition.
Yeah. Well, what happened was we had gone to a theater festival at the Mark Taper Forum, and we had been asked to write something for Los Angeles, right? And so we put together what we call Baby Zoot, and it was the story of Zoot Suit, basically based on the riots that took place. And we started investigating the case, and we found out all this injustice had taken place. 22 young Chicanos were convicted of murder and sent to San Quentin, and it took 2 years to get them out of prison. Yeah. So we went to the Hall of Records at the city and actually pulled out the transcripts. It was 10,000 pages of transcripts of the case itself. So there's a scene in the movie that takes place in the court, and all of the dialogue in that courtroom scene comes from the transcripts of the actual case. Yeah, and so we got to meet the family of Henry Levas,
Yeah.
who was the character I played, and they gave us a lot of background. We started studying everybody. It was an interesting time because, believe it or not, all the guys that were involved, the 22 that went to prison, only 4 of them really came out and supported this thing because they had really hidden the fact that this had happened to them in their lives. And what happened was the LA Times got a hold of the story that we were working on Zoom. They printed it in the newspaper, and so all of the guys' families came out of the woodwork and said, "Why are you telling this story? We wanted to keep this a secret. A lot of our family didn't know what really happened to us." It was a scandal. It was a real scandal. So we had to sit down with all 22 of them to say, "Look, this is really important. What happened to you guys?" You know, and it was amazing because these guys were very timid and very quiet, man. One of them, whose father had died when he was young, and he had kept it a secret from his family that it actually had happened. And so what we opened up was a real mystery of what really happened.
Pandora's box.
Exactly. And so, I mean, what we ended up doing was compositing 22 of them down to 4 characters in the play. And they're all based on the 22. And even Della, who plays the girl, the love interest, she was a composite of several girls that were
Really?
yeah were Hank's friends.
So who had to sit down and talk with them? You and
Lisa and I sat with the family and talked with them. We got a lot of the information from them. But really, a lot of that story stuff came out of the newspapers that were printed in the 1940s. There was a whole barrage of articles that were in the newspaper, the LA Times, about the Pachucos and the Pachuco riots that took place.
Yes.
Because they took place actually on Temple in Maine, which is the actual exact corner where the Mark Taper is right now. That's where the riot actually took place.
Really?
So all this history of Los Angeles.
Yes.
But really what it was, the whole Pachuco myth had been a myth in our family. We had heard these myths as we were growing up, right? If the word Pachuco was a nasty word. If your father called you a Pachuco, you were bad news, man.
Yes.
You know, hoodlum. And so a lot of Chicanos had not connected with the idea of who Pachucos really were until we brought out the story of the Zoot Suit. Because we can connect why so many Mexican families who didn't want to be associated with Zoot Suit. And also really what it was a story of a second generation. Because really what it was, the early Pachucos, 1940s, were really the firstborn of a lot of the Mexican families who
Yes.
crossed the border in 1910.
Yes.
And so these were the first natural born in the United States. And they didn't see themselves as Mexicanos. They saw themselves as something else. And they didn't identify with Mexican American because it was a contradiction. So the word Chicano came out. And a lot of people talk about the origins of the word Pachuco. It could be El Paso. El Paso was an actual name for El Paso was El Chuco.
Yeah.
All right. So a lot of people is it Pachuco, Pachuco? I mean, is it? I mean, there's a whole history behind it. Anyway, what ended up happening was we unleashed it. We opened up the myth of the Pachuco, and we didn't realize why it was such a stain in our history. Is because these young Chicanos were crucified and basically sent to San Quentin for life. You know, and the youngest was 16 years old.
Jeez.
The oldest was 22. And so
They were babies.
yeah, they were absolute babies. And so, I mean, in the middle of all this, the riots were taking place. They were dragging young Chicanos out of the theaters and stripping them on the street. And so, the whole idea of being stripped in front of an audience, in front of a public, was the most shameful thing that could ever happen. So, the connotation of Pachuco was really a nasty connotation. So, when we got a hold of the story, we realized, no, this is a story about identity. This is a story of a young, firstborn Chicano who identified himself totally different than being American. He saw himself as being Chicano.
Wow.
And he called himself Chicano. And he identified with his own kind. And because in the 1940s nobody could afford cars like we do now, right? We have cars. The thing that you could put your money behind is a Zoot Suit. In the 1940s, it cost you $200 to make a Zoot Suit. Well, that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
So
That's a
you're
lot of money.
Talking about people saving, working at gas stations, working in the fields, gathering and saving that money to have a Zoot Suit made. So the reason they wore it all the time is because that's all they had.
Yeah.
But it would also became a symbol of resistance, a symbol of style, and most of the important is a symbol of identity. There's a certain identity. The whole Zoot Suit myth was huge. It didn't just affect Chicanos. It affected everyone across the board. I mean, Cab Calloway came out with his white Zoot Suit and singing "Howdy Ho." I mean, this was a big thing. The Jews put them on. The Filipinos put them on. There was a whole generation that came out of that big band era that identified themselves as being different from their parents. So the whole quest of Zoot Suit was to identify yourself as being American, distinctly Chicano.
Wow. What a history lesson.
Yeah,
we could talk. I could listen to you for hours like your brother.
It was amazing because we started researching this thing and we started finding articles and people who were connected to it. And it's amazing because the story actually happened because of a connection with movie stars. Believe it or not, the first fundraiser that was held together for the Sleepy Lagoon Defense Committee was held at Cecil B. DeMille's house because Henry's sister knew Anthony Quinn.
Uh-huh.
Anthony Quinn was married to Cecil B. DeMille's daughter. And it was Anthony Quinn who organized the first fundraiser. So he brought in Joseph Cotton, Rita Moreno, Rita Hayworth, all these movie stars, and there was a big fundraising event held at his mansion, and they raised the money to hire 9 lawyers for the defense.
Wow.
Yeah, it's an amazing story.
I know Rita Hayworth donated some of her dresses.
Yes.
For these women.
Yeah, it was an amazing thing that happened. The event that took place at that period was absolutely amazing. But the actual case ran for 3.5 months, and so they never let them cut their hair or change their clothes. So these guys looked like animals by the time they put them on the stand. I mean, it was a real circus, but it was an important event for the Chicano reality. Right?
Yes. Wow. What a history lesson.
Yeah, we still stay in contact with them. The family got very close to me because they identified with me totally. And the sisters and the brother, Rudy was still alive. A lot of that came, and they were there every night. They came to, when we went to Broadway, they were there.
I know. How was the impact when Zoot Suit, I mean, even when I was 7, 8 years ago when we were over there, every night it was packed.
Yeah, the amazing thing was we came to Los Angeles to do a festival for 10 days. It's the first version of Zoot Suit we call Baby Zoot, right? And it was part of a festival, theater festival, so there were other companies that were performing during that period. And we performed for those 10 days, and the theater was used to outperforming in different venues like that. It was a theater, right? So we didn't expect people to respond the way they did. And those 10 days sold out. In 3 days, the entire 900 seats were sold out. The word got around, and Latinos wanted to see this thing and demanded to see it. So I have to give credit to Gordon Davidson, who was really the artistic director for
Yes.
the paper, who really saw the potential of what we were trying to do. And he said, okay, we want to bring you back for a 9-week period because we think this is a fluke. we can't believe that an audience is a big. We came back for those 9 weeks, and it sold out in the first week. All 9 weeks were sold out. They were scalping tickets in the street. I mean, the audience was huge, and it was a return audience. You had people coming with their cousins, with their neighbors, whoever they could find.
Oh, wait, how many times did you go, Phil?
I lost count, but I was so impressed by that play.
Yeah, the amazing thing was, Latinos didn't go to theater.
No,
You know what?
we didn't. I
But
had never.
they heard about Zoot Suit, and there was a bar in there. So it was a total different experience for Latinos to actually go to the theater and get dressed up. And that's the other thing. We had a Rocky Horror Picture Show experience because the audience started dressing
Like Pachucos.
like the Pachucos. Some of them had better costumes than we did. So it was an amazing experience. But it sold us 9 weeks, sold out, and people kept demanding more tickets, and they couldn't stop the box office from selling. So they closed us down. We pushed 3 or 4 other productions out of the way. And they wanted to keep us going. So we ended up buying a theater round the corner on Sunset Boulevard, which is the old Earl Carroll's Dinner Theater, which was actually a theater, a space where it was a television series called Queen for a Day that they used to run there. It was huge theater with this tremendous stage. It was larger than you can imagine. It had these 2 turnstiles. You could put cars on top. That's how big this thing. And they used to bring the girls down these stairs, right? Because it was a big show, but it was shot live. So it was pretty much abandoned. The hippies had gotten in, tore it up, and the seats were all torn and everything. So we invested money and revamped the entire theater and redid all the seats and the stage, and we reopened the Zoot Suit at the Earl Carroll Theater on Sunset Boulevard, and it sold out for 11 months.
Oh, my God.
And what ended up happening was New York, the Schubert organization, who are people who run the theaters in New York, had come to see Zoot Suit because they had heard about this phenomenon that was taking place. The people were in the line standing around the corner, down the block. They came in and said, we want to bring Zoot Suit to be the first Hispanic play on Broadway. So at the time, it was running at the Earl Carroll Theater. We couldn't turn it down, so we put a second cast in there, and we took the original cast to New York. So Zoot Suit was running in 2 at the same time in New York and in L.A.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it made $5.5 million at the door.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Especially during that's a lot.
It was 1978, 79. It was something I'd never seen before. So the actual happening of Zoot Suit was really unexpected. At the same time that what it solidified it, it's really identified the fact that there was a huge Hispanic market that was starving for their own kind of story. And it gave us the opportunity to work on it, right? And, I mean, I can't tell you the amount of people who've come to see the play. And, I mean, I was saying earlier, when we opened on Broadway, there were 1,700 seats. And that was the other thing, is that the Earl Carroll Theater was 1,200 seats. And so they put us in the biggest theater on Broadway, at the Winter Garden Theater, which sat 1,700 people. And we were worried about whether or not we would be able to fill the house there.
Yeah.
Because there's no Chicanos in New York.
There's got to be like a few.
Well, there is now. But in fact, there's Colombianos and Ecuadorianos.
Right.
I mean,
Puerto Ricans.
yeah, there was no presence, and so we were relying on that audience. So we were biting nails to see what was going to happen.
Yeah.
We sold out in New York, and people were actually buying tickets in California and flying to New York to be there for opening night, and it was everybody.
I would have.
It was amazing.
She would have. She would have had money.
It was amazing. We opened up and we had a tremendous audience with 3 curtain calls. And so as we were leaving, I turned to the corner, and Mick Jagger was standing in the aisle in the wings, and he was dressed in a zoot suit.
No way.
Yeah, so he flipped out. He loved the show. He really had loved the show, so he became a real fan.
Don't tell Dad.
And in L.A., Jerry Garcia saw it 22 times. Wow. Yeah, a lot of people who went to see it just couldn't believe. We got to meet a lot.
I remember this last time when you guys were showing it. I remember Robert Rodriguez being there a few times.
Yeah.
Christina Aguilera being there a few times. She would sneak in.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, it's even now, I mean, after we 35 years later, we revamped it, right? And we still have an audience coming in to see it.
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
So that's a great history.
Well, thank you. I mean, thank you for doing that. We wouldn't be here, I don't think, if you would have never, and your brother would have put your heads together. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be here.
Yeah, it was amazing because, we were writing it. My brother and I would talk about how we were going to put this thing together. We didn't know exactly how to do it. And we knew we had to have to find some music. I didn't know how to find music. I did all the music for the play. So I started searching my research to see what I could find, right? And what Latinos were writing music in the 1940s. Very, very few. I mean, there were only a few people who actually wrote things.
Yeah.
I contacted a friend of mine in Los Angeles who was an ethnomusicologist, and I said, listen, I'm looking for anything that to do with Zoot Suits. And he said, well, there's Cab Calloway. I said, no, I I need something more Latino. He said, hey, Javier Cougar. He's the closest thing you can find, right? He said, I have a recording of this guy. He says, and he does a whole bunch of slang stuff, and I don't really know who he is because I recorded it a long time ago. He sent me the tape,
Lalo.
and there's Lalo Guerrero. I didn't know it was Lalo. When I heard it for the first time, and that's where we heard "Que le guacha mis trapos," that was actually in the recording. It was a series of Pachuco's records that he did in the late 1940s and early 50s, just for the Pachuco audience. When he was touring, the Pachucos would come to the dances and say, hey, why don't you write something for us? Wow. So he started writing. He had Chuco Suaves.
Yes.
And, I found this stuff, and it was a gold mine. So I had to adapt a lot of the music to the play. Zoot Suit Boogie, which is in the movie, it's called Chicas Patas Boogie, which is the way Lalo actually wrote it.
Yeah.
It was all in Spanish. So I translated it to Zoot Suit Boogie.
Wow.
And, we formed that. Slowly the soundtrack started to grow, right? And one of the things that we ran
So a lot of those names weren't even the same names.
No.
Wow.
He changed. I adapted a lot of the stuff, right? But he had some recordings in there that we could not use, unfortunately, because when we came to cast it, that's another story. We came to cast it, and we must have saw 300 Chicanos for the roles, right? We were looking for a Pachuco. We didn't know where we were going to find a Pachuco. So we opened it up to whoever would come. We had a line of Pachucos standing outside the taper coming into audition, right? Unfortunately, a lot of them never acted before. And so, we gave them a side. And I said, what's that? These the dialogue. I don't need no dialogue. They start talking Pachuco slang without that. I said, no, you got to read the script. We started looking, we couldn't find anybody. We found a few people that ended up in the show. Some of them who started with us in that early version of Baby Zoot. But there was this guy who came, and we'd probably been there, I think, a week or two. And I still hadn't found anybody. There was a guy who walked into the rehearsal space, and he goes, what are you guys doing? He said, well, we're working on trying to get a role. We're looking for an actor. Well, what are you doing? What story are you doing? He said, we're doing a story of Zoot Suits. What's that? So we started telling him, and the more I looked at him, the more he looked really interesting. So he was at a audition for a Shakespeare play that happened to be at the taper, and he had been auditioning, so he didn't get the role. So when he walked by, he was curious. Well, that was Eddie Olmos. He came in red, and I went, wow, that's him. That's him. So we found Edward Olmos. Eddie James is his name, for the Pachuco character. You know, we had been manipulating a lot of stuff because the Pachuco character had to sing as well as dance and act, right? And that's a hard thing to ask actors to do. They don't make triple threats like that anymore.
No.
So Eddie had all the quality, had all the talent. So we were lucky to find the people that we did get, who later became stars. They went on to become big stars. You know, Eddie Olmos, Tony Plana, Rose Portillo, Lupe Tiveros, all of them. Tiveros went out and did a whole bunch of films with Steven Spielberg. Yeah, it was amazing. You know, some of the people that were involved in the early production were some really talented people. But
it was almost like The Outsiders, because you guys had all these different actors. They all became stars.
You know, actually, I've been thinking we should probably do a movie about the making of Zoot Suit.
You should, yes.
And how it happened.
That would be unbelievable.
Yeah, I think it would make a great film. You know?
Like the making of La Bamba, the making of Zoot Suit.
Exactly. I mean,
With a book.
we just released 2 weeks ago the making of La Bamba.
Yes.
And it was a photographic. I have a book coming out with that. I tell the story of how it.
Well, let us know how we can help in the making of Zoot Suit, because we wouldn't be here today without that.
Yeah, I was just saying, I've been bouncing around this idea. You know, they do these presentations now with John Williams, right? They show Star Wars, and they actually have an orchestra.
Yes.
They play the sound.
Yes.
I want to do that with Zoot Suit.
I want to do that with Zoot Suit.
You know, actually have a big band. I only did one performance. There was one tour that we did. The show was never done with a live band. It was never done with an orchestra. Everything was pre-recorded. So one shot I had, and it was in San Diego at the San Diego Rep.
Yeah, the Repertory Theater.
Yeah, I actually brought an orchestra in, and we did the show live, which was incredible. We ran into all kinds of problems trying to do it, because how do you keep a trumpet from being so loud, right?
Right, yeah.
And you got dialogue on the stage. I mean, how do you do that? So,
Well, they got to mic everybody nowadays.
so I'm thinking, I've been toying with the idea of doing a live performance of Zoot Suit with a band. I created this thing called the American Zoot Band in Review, and it was I hired 23 musicians, and we actually performed it as a stage show. So, I mean, it was never done with a live orchestra, which is something now they do regularly, right?
Wow. I got to connect you with the director at the LA Community, or was it City College, who did the musical there.
Oh, that gentleman.
Yes.
Yes. I forgot his name.
He did one of the ones from New York, the
Yeah.
one out there. He did it and they had a full orchestra. They had the school that focuses on that,
Yeah.
the school that focuses on dance, the school
Exactly.
that focuses on acting, and they brought them all together
Exactly.
to do this production. They hadn't done any musicals in over a decade.
Yeah, they just did
And I was like,
West
well,
Side
we need
Story
to-
that way. You know,
Yeah.
They put a live band.
No, that's
Something else happened.
we can still do more stuff with Zoot Suit.
Yeah, oh man, be amazing.
We talk about it a lot, actually, about
Reviving
what are-
something.
You know, we interview all these people and hear their family stories of their Zoot Suits and why they are here in the store.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we have so many good stories. We could do a contemporary
Exactly.
follow-up.
Exactly. I mean, we started looking into our own stories, and I love the idea of going back into the past, revealing what our family were like. You know, I mean, the story of Cesar Chavez is
Yes.
still sitting there. You know, really needs to be done. The story of Dolores Huerta.
Yes.
You know, there are all these stories that are now potential films. You know, I'm working on a piece now that it's an animated film with it's a puppet that moves around, and I do the voice for the character. And, so we're messing around with that kind of stuff, and I've been toying with the idea of doing I wrote a screenplay for Cheech and Marin. Cheech and I have known each other since 1975.
Yeah.
And we were on the same record label together, so we got to be friends. And this was 1973, and we were both on A&M Records, and I did my first album on A&M Records. So years later, it's right after La Bamba, he approached me and he said, "Hey, you know, I want to do something on the border. And
Born East LA.
yeah, we were born in East LA, and so I did the music for Born in East LA.
Really?
And
wow.
so I was in it, and I
Yeah, you were in it.
Yeah, and I put my cuñado. My cuñado's in there playing the bass.
That's right. You guys were the band playing when they went up.
yeah. And,
I forgot he was in Born in East LA.
yeah, and I mean, we got some real incredible players to be in it, but it was an amazing piece, absolutely amazing. But he said, well, see what else we can do, So I came up with a screenplay called The Murals of East LA, and it took place around the 1950s, and there was two young Chicanos who were painting the side of La Tienda del Chino, right? And so it's an old scaffold built of 2x4s and whatever they pipas and everything, and there's Cheech and Tommy up there, right? And they're painting in the corner painting, and they say, what's it called, man? They stop, and they pull out this lonchera, right? And they open the lonchera, and they pull the lonchera, and there's a joint in there, a big old joint, that big. And you see them light it, and as it light, the fumes go up like that, and the camera pushes into the wall where he's been drawing. And as it pushes in, it opens up and it becomes the Chicano world. So it's a Chicano story told in animation.
Wow.
Yeah. And,
Wow, that's incredible.
yeah, so we started playing with the idea, and we met with a guy named Ralph Bakshi, who did American Pop. He happens to be Chicano, by the way. And we wanted to get him to do the animation, right? And he said, well, it's a very expensive medium, to make movies. He said, well, see if we can come up with a couple of prototypes, So he drew up these two characters, just Tommy and Cheech, as cartoon characters. And we never got very far because the budget for the thing was just
Crazy.
Out of control. But now you have computers, right? So you can do stuff with a computer that you couldn't do in those days. Everything was handwritten. But I still have this inkling to do a Chicano feature film cartoon using the art from the prison art.
Wow.
Actually, I have it come alive, right?
Wow.
So I've been toying with the idea for a while, but
You have a lot of ideas.
yeah, well, I love film, man. I love film and music, and the idea of bringing them to life would be incredible. And we don't have cartoons.
No.
We don't have cartoons. I can imagine doing a Chicano cartoon, man. And,
That'd be great.
yeah.
Such
Yes.
a great idea.
You're loaded
Such a
with
great
them.
idea.
And we're going to cut things off there. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of El Pachuco Chronicles. Splitting this interview with Daniel Valdez into two parts since it was a rather long conversation. Stay tuned for the second episode coming shortly.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3. All right. Trick-ta. Winner. Trip-trap. Chica. Chick. All right. Rock that boogie, 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 rock that boogie. Rock that boogie.